Go ahead and dive into our NFL team tiers. So let me break down these tiers for you guys. So we've got 4 tiers. One is Super Bowl. Clearly, teams that 100% have a shot at making the Super Bowl. Wouldn't surprise us at all if they make it. Two is playoffs. Either they're a lock to make the playoffs or they might find themselves in the playoffs. It wouldn't necessarily be shocking if they make the playoffs. Third tier is we call it next year, meaning this year, not their year, but next year is the possibility that they can get into the playoffs. And then fourth and final tier, you do not want to be in this one. And this one is called Livin On A Prayer, meaning that it's going to take all the prayers in the world to get these teams within the playoffs and even the Super Bowl here for the next 2 to 3 years. Okay, so to make this easier on us, I think we just go here division by division. We just knock out the teams in the division. And by the way, we're doing this on a consensus. I'm not giving mine, Chase's, and giving his. I know we kind of do a lot of that when we do our rankings, but we're building a collective ATF tiers here of it. So we have to come to a consensus one way or the other where we're putting these teams. So it might be challenging, it might not. We tend to kind of agree on the most part for some of these things, but we'll see where we kind of get off on agreement here. So I figure we'll just we'll start here with the AFC conference and we'll just go division by division, Chase.
Sure.
And talk about it. Okay.
Yep. Sounds good. Sounds good to me.
Okay. Perfect. So we'll start here in the AFC and we'll go into one of our favorite divisions here coming up this season, especially, and that's going to be the AFC East.
Yes.
Okay. And so let's go ahead and start with this might be pretty quick, but let's just start with the Buffalo Bills. I'm going to say Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's what I'd say.
Yeah, I think that's pretty straightforward here.
Mm-hmm.
Miami Dolphins.
I had them. I would say playoffs.
I would say playoffs as well. So some of these we don't want to get, we don't have to go into too depth, but just kind of brief. Yes. Dolphins. I still have questions about Tua. I really love what they've done, the offense and the defense that they built. I still have questions about Tua. So I'm 100% confident they'll make the playoffs. I don't have a doubt in my mind about that. But I don't know if Tua is going to have enough to be able to make it to the Super Bowl. That's my resolve currently with the Dolphins.
Yeah, and I think, their head coach looked phenomenal last year. But he was a rookie, brand new head coach. Second year, they might have, his system gets a little bit exposed, not figured out. I hate that term, but, it's, they know what's coming now from that. So he's not going to have that shock factor that he did early in the season with the Dolphins. So I think that might, we haven't seen all that he's got up his sleeve.
Yeah. The New England Patriots.
I have them in the Living on a Prayer.
Whoa, really? Because I had them in playoffs.
Wow.
Fringe, okay. like a fringe playoff. Okay, that's cool. Let's talk about it. Yeah. So I mean, I had them on fringe playoff team. Definitely, I definitely wouldn't go down to Living on a Prayer. If anything, I'd go down to next year just because they were in competition for the playoffs last year. It wasn't like they missed the playoffs a lot. They could have made it. There was some questionable games, like that game against the Raiders, where they literally just threw the game away. So that kind of bit them. But the biggest thing is just Mac Jones regressed so much because of the offense. It wasn't necessarily his fault. The offense was not set up success from the coaching on down, and so I don't really know if they've solved it this time. But the fact that they were just 8-9 a year ago, and almost made the playoffs. I think they're definitely. I wouldn't put them in the playoffs, but I would put them as a fringe playoff team. Something crazy could happen, and they could get in, and needing a little bit of help for some other people losing. But they could still make the playoffs. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, the way I've seen it is that offense got even worse than what it was the year ago. Mac Jones regressed, and now a lot of it wasn't Mac Jones, but I don't think Mac Jones is going to get any better. Mac Jones is one of those prototypical kind of league ready. You're going to get his best years early, and then he's going to fade off. That quarterback's coming into the draft from Alabama, right? And then the fact that he's already kind of showing that he's not the guy. It's a little nervous. I know he's had some rundown offensive coordinators, two guys that never coached offense before. Also, is their offense is not great. They have a stable of running backs that aren't really great running backs. Really no wide receivers.
Stevenson? You don't like Ramondre Stevenson?
No. Ramondre Stevenson, I'd put in that Eckler category where he gets a lot of hype because he does well in fantasy, not necessarily winning games. So I think Ramondre Stevenson, I don't think if fantasy football was here, Ramondre Stevenson wouldn't be, the bell cow back that they try to make him. And then their wide receivers, right? That was one of their biggest needs. We talked about it when we did a couple drafts for them, right? And they refused it. I don't think they drafted one till what, the 6th round? Now they did have a couple of early good picks and Christian Gonzalez, and they had that Jack Jones, I think it is. Is that their cornerback from rookie last year that popped off the chart from ASU? I think it's Jack Jones. So their defense could be still good. Bill Belichick's still there, but I'm just not feeling the Patriots. I think, Tom Brady's leaving. I don't think it caused a downfall of the Patriots, but I think it hurt that organization where it's going to take a couple of years for them to bounce back. They drafted a punter and a kicker.
Yeah. I just don't think that there would be 2 or 3 years. Because for me, like living on the prayer tier is that they're 2 or 3 years away from being in the playoffs. And I wouldn't go that. Would you compromise on the next year tier?
Yeah, I guess if Mac Jones looks good this year, I could see them, being a year away from the playoffs, getting some wide receivers, which just looks, a little early, but looking to be a nice wide receiver free agent market and draft class. I can see that. I just think their offense is so pitiful.
Okay, well, we'll compromise and put it on the next year tier. I'm okay with that. And then the Jets, pretty locked down on this one. I think playoffs.
Okay, I had them in Super Bowl.
Really, Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm. They just grabbed the 4-time MVP, Justin Jefferson's second overall quarterback in the league. Their defense was already really nice. They added Will McDonald. I think it's Super Bowl or nothing for the Jets, and that's where I put them. Right? I think it wouldn't be shocking for them to run the table.
Does Aaron Rodgers' recent struggles in the playoffs not concern you at all?
No. I mean, he struggled. If you look back at it, as a Packers fan who studied this, the last playoff game that we had against the 49ers, the offense was awful. The last one that we had then you go back to the championship game, and our defense, right, that was Tom Brady's championship game. Our defense allowed 40 points to be scored. We were down to the wire. Then you go back again to the 49ers.
Yeah, but Rodgers had the ball 3 times in the fourth quarter to score, and he didn't.
He scored in the fourth quarter. He kicked a field goal.
Yeah, it was 4th and 8 from like the 10-yard line, and they kicked the field goal.
That's not Rodgers' decision to kick the field goal.
I know, but he couldn't. He couldn't make. Anyway, I get where you're coming from, but to me, that's where I just look at it. To where like, yes, the Jets are a stacked team. They might have been a situation where they were like the Bucks, where they had all the right pieces. They were just a quarterback away. I'm still high on Rodgers. I am, but I just think, man, like when it's come to the playoffs recently, he just hasn't played like he used to play in those big games in the playoffs. So I am reserved. I won't fight you too much on it. So if you believe in the Super Bowl, since you compromise with me on the Patriots, I'm fine compromising with you on the Jets. I just want it known that I'm not 100% in on the Super Bowl tier for the Jets, but I'll compromise with you.
Yeah, I think they have one of the best defenses in the league. I'm going to put them in the Super Bowl. Not like in the Super Bowl.
I get it. In the Super Bowl tier. Got it. All right, let's do the Bengals. We're heading to the AFC North.
Okay. I think this one's pretty easy.
Yeah, Livin On A Prayer.
Oh, yeah. Joe Burrows. Jamar Chase. They
this
both
did
ACL.
Super Bowl?
Super Bowl. Absolutely. Yeah. They were just in it, a year and a half ago.
Yeah,
so.
And they were a player or two away from being back in there last year. So yes. 100% Bengals for sure. Ravens.
I have Ravens as a playoff team.
Playoff, yeah, same here. I just think as long as as long as John Harbaugh is their coach, they're going to be in playoff contention. We saw what he was able to do last year without Lamar Jackson. If Lamar Jackson truly is healthy and he's coming back after this mega contract, so maybe that reinvigorates him. I don't really like a lot of the talent on offense. I think it's very Lamar Jackson centered with a little dose of Mark Andrews. I don't think their defense is as good as we're typically used to seeing from the Ravens. So I expect them to go far in the playoffs, but I do for sure think they're a playoff team. There's 2 scenarios where one, I could see them actually missing the playoffs. That wouldn't shock me either. But in this case, I not in the next year tier is way too low for them. So I think definitely playoff tier.
Yep, that's exactly where I am. I don't expect them to be in the playoffs this year. I think they honestly will miss it, but they are better than the teams that I put down below. So I think it wouldn't shock me if they, with the new coach and the contract you already mentioned with Lamar. I think they'll be.
And my somehow new favorite team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, I don't think it's going to shock anybody if you've been listening where I've got them as playoffs.
I do too.
Oh,
I have them
cool.
as playoffs.
I've kind
I
of
think I've yep.
convinced you.
I think I've listened to you enough where I see the reasoning and I can track it.
There you go. Okay, awesome. Um, that's so funny because I used to freaking hate this. I mean, I don't necessarily love the Steelers. I'm not rooting for them, but I just accept for what it is. What my eyes tell
Yeah,
me, I got to go with. And then the Cleveland Browns.
and I have them as playoffs.
Really?
Yes, yes. I wouldn't be surprised, and I'm not going to fight you too hard on this, but I had them as the last team that in the playoffs, like in the playoffs here. If Deshaun Watson comes back and even looks half better than what he did last year, I don't think he can get worse. That Nick Chubb run attack, they've got some decent pieces out wide. David Njoku, that defense led by Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward with JOK in the middle of that. I think they are a decent team trending up. My one concern is Kevin Stefanski. I think is the most overrated coach in the league. I don't think he's any good, and he could hold them back. So I'll be. But I was just thinking next year, living on a prayer. I think they are closer than I think this is their year to get to the playoffs, and I don't think they are living on a prayer. I don't think miracle needs to happen. They can easily get a wild card spot.
Yeah. So I did next year.
Okay.
Yeah. So I definitely didn't do live on a prayer. They definitely got the pieces, but they still just the way that they've played. Like besides that one year with Baker, where they went to the division round in the playoffs, they really haven't been able to do anything. And I agree with you. A lot of it was Stefanski. I was really high on him when he came to the Browns. I thought, oh man, this is gonna be a guy that's gonna be able to fix it, get it work, and it looked like he was doing it right. It looked like they were trending
Yes.
upwards, and then they decided to bring the whole thing down and do this whole deal with Deshaun Watson. And so, I don't know if Deshaun Watson's going to have another year like he did. He only played half a season. When he came back, he was just so bad.
So
So I don't really know what to expect from Deshaun Watson. So I put them in the next year. In the next year category because depending on what they look like this year, could they make the playoffs? I'm really out on it to be honest. Like I don't really have a percentage of me that believes they'll actually make the playoffs. But I think next year for me, I could see it. I could see it happening. The turnover with the playoff teams is just too much to say that they're 2 to 3 years away. And so I put them in next year.
yep, I'd be fine with that.
Okay,
I could I think they are close. So
next year. Okay, perfect. That wraps up the AFC North, and we'll go here to the AFC South. Um, and so I think here we might be getting into some of the tier we haven't quite gone yet. So let's go with the Houston Texans.
I have them as living on a prayer.
Yep. I'm the same way. They might, depending on what they're building with their coach. I really love D'Amico Ryans. They've got some good pieces, right? They grabbed C.J. Stroud. They've given him some weapons. They got Will Anderson Jr. D'Amico Ryans knows how to build the defense, and so, but they're just where they were at. I mean, yeah, just where they're at. There's a lot to do that to where you can say like, it, you know, at least 2 years. Right, continue doing that, and they had to give up draft capital too to go back up to get Will Anderson, so that kind of puts them back a little bit as well. So definitely living on a prayer for me.
Yep, yep. I think they're trending in the right direction. I think this
Yes.
new regime is doing a really good job. I'm a very, we know from the podcast, both of us are very high on CJ Stroud. So I just think that the old stuff, all the Deshaun Watson stuff, and selling all their best players a couple years ago that they did, put them so far back that it's going to take a couple years to dig them out of the hole.
Yep. Especially not getting anything for DeAndre Hopkins and things like that. Like
Mm-hmm.
just really bad. So definitely set them back. So the Colts, Indianapolis Colts. I've
I have
got them. Oh, sorry. Go
Go
ahead.
ahead. I have them as next year.
Hmm.
Want me to give a little
Try.
elaborate?
Yeah, go ahead. Try to convince me. Try to
Okay.
convince me. So I'm kind of there, but I push me over the
Yes.
ledge.
So I think the reason that they ended up so bad this year is they traded for the worst starter the last 3 years in football, Matt Ryan. The advanced statistic and regular statistics even show that. They're also their offensive line fell apart, and I mean it was one of the worst offensive lines. Literally went from the best to the worst. Quentin Nelson was just laughably bad. Brian Kelly or Robert Kelly, the right tackle, got mouthed over every play. A lot of their stars on defense, like Darius Leonard and DeForest Buckner, ended up getting hurt, not playing all season. I think that defense is closer than what it showed last year. And I think Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson's rushing attack is good enough this year to keep them afloat, kind of middle of the thing. And then Anthony Richardson, I believe, after a year of development, will have to take a Josh Kelly type jump, or not Josh Kelly, sorry, Josh Allen type jump. Not superstar potential, maybe not year two, but I definitely enough to get to lead a playoff team in a weaker division.
Hmm. Yeah, but you're banking on AR-15 being the guy, though, right?
Yes,
And you have to know that he's the guy this year for them to be, anywhere close next year.
next year,
So,
correct.
yeah, man, I'm not the biggest AR guy like you are. I'm not going to fight you too much on it. I personally would put them on Living On A Prayer. I think at least 2 years,
And I'd
right?
be okay with that.
Oh, you're okay with that?
I think I'd be okay. Like as long as we understand that I don't think they're not as bad as some of these teams, right? Their defense is still young, so they can have a couple of years to develop. I just think, I guess maybe not Josh Allen jump, but I think Anthony Richardson year two takes like a Trevor Lawrence jump, where he went from struggling his rookie year to starting to look like a quarterback. I expect Trevor Lawrence. We'll talk about him in just a second, but I expect him to take an even bigger jump this year. So I'd be okay with banking maybe 2 years on Anthony Richardson because I know a lot of people aren't as high on him as I am.
Yeah, I agree. I'm there with there, and like that's what the Living on the Prayer category is, right? It's within 2 to 3 years, right? So they definitely have a lot of work to do, especially when you're looking at the competition in the AFC specifically. So yeah, so if you're cool with it, then Living on the
Yeah.
Prayer, I think is the best category as of right now, especially until we see more. We
Right.
actually see AR there in action to see the Tennessee Titans.
I have them as living on a prayer.
Me too. Yeah, they're
I don't
screwed.
even think 2 or 3 years is going to be enough for them.
Yeah, they're screwed. They had that one brief small window where they made the AFC Championship game. That was
Nowhere.
their a rare moment. That was their moment, and
Yeah.
they just gotten worse ever since then.
Mm-hmm.
They're getting rid of their best players. AJ Brown left. They haven't been able to replace anything. But they bring in Traylon Burks, but he really hasn't done anything. But their quarterback position is the biggest thing. They've been to the playoffs, but that division has been so weak that they've been able to make the playoffs based off of winning their division. Now the fact that the Jags are rolling, it's going to be a lot harder because they're going to have to win the division to make the playoffs. They're not going to be able to make it in as a wild card team. So I've got them Living on a Prayer as well,
Yeah.
especially because they have no idea what the quarterback situation. I mean, it turns out I guess Malik Willis is out playing Will Levis in camp right now or in the off season. So I don't really know what
Season.
to believe,
Yeah.
but it's I don't know, there's just a lot of things up in there, especially at the most important position. And so when you 100% don't have that settled, you can't be a next year team or this year team. You just can't.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree 100%. Everything you said.
And that brings us here to another team that we're very high on. Very, I think a lot of people are very high, and I think they rightfully should be. So that's going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars. So to be honest, I put them in the playoffs tier because I'm not there to say Super Bowl yet. I think they'd be. I mean, for sure playoffs. I think they run away with that division, especially if they build on the momentum that they finished the season with last year. Build off that momentum, but I don't think they're quite good enough based on what I've seen right as of today to beat one of these higher, caliber playoff teams in the AFC to make it to the Super Bowl. That's kind of my opinion.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. I put them in playoffs, but I think, if I think that they potentially could do kind of what the Eagles did last year, right? Calvin Ridley comes in. If he is what he looks like and what he's projected to be, that offense could take off. That defense has a lot of outside linebackers blitzing, kind of like what the Eagles did, overstack their defense and let those cornerbacks kind of not have to read so much of the field because there's getting pass rush there so far. I think they're going to be a very very good team. but I put them in playoffs.
I'm with you. I'm with you. So we'll wrap up here with the AFC West. And so let's knock it down. Let's start with the defending champs, the Chiefs. No surprise here, I don't think. Super Bowl.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, don't need to really talk about that. What do you got the LA Chargers at?
I have them as playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. They're going to be. I'm excited to see the leap that Herbert takes here with Kellen Moore as his offensive coordinator. I think the offense is going to look a lot better, a lot more dynamic. So we'll see if he's able to, to flow with that. And he's intelligent enough to where he can learn a new system and I think still play at a high level. So playoffs for sure. My least favorite team in the entire NFL, the Las Vegas Raiders.
Living on a prayer.
Yes, sir. That's
the right
answer.
The quarterback is.
That's the right answer. Living on a prayer. We don't even have to. I mean, there's this. Yeah, no way. Yep. And then we got the Denver Broncos.
And I have them as next year.
Me too. Wow, I'm complete agreement on that one. So that's
clean sweep.
That's a clean sweep. So I've got next year as well. We'll see. I just don't know if the Sean Payton effect. I just don't know if that's going to be enough to put them over the edge. I don't think all of what was going on was Nathaniel Hackett's fault. I just don't believe it. I just don't believe it. So I don't think Russ is this washed up quarterback. I think a lot of factors went into it last year, but I just don't think one coach is going to be able to come in and save the day just like that.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think Sean McVay is going to be this miraculous savior that Denver wants. The other thing that worries me is I think that they're going to have to do the same thing kind of the Jags did this year, where it takes a while to get the stink of Nathaniel Hackett. Again, I don't blame him, but I think a lot of it was pride on Russell's part, right? He thought he was this big quarterback, top quarterback, changing systems, didn't have Pete Carroll's nice system to protect him, new head coach, never really had his own team. So I think there'd be a lot of times where they have to kind of, maybe win a couple close ones before they really find their groove. And I think it might take a while to do that. So I think this year they're going to be still to kind of the bottom, and then next year is potential when that defense and offense finally click at the same time.
Yeah, I agree. So that wraps up the AFC here. So taking stock, so we've got 4 teams in the AFC that we think are Super Bowl contenders: the Bills, Jets, Bengals, and Chiefs. And we've got in the playoff tier the Dolphins, Ravens, Steelers, Jags, and Chargers. The next year tier, Patriots, Browns, and Broncos. And then living on a prayer, the Texans, Colts, Titans, and Raiders. So I think that's a pretty solid list.
Yes.
Those are pretty correct tiers there. So I'm happy with that. I think we did good with that.
Yes, I agree.